Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and today we're back here with Bernard in Worlds Within Worlds from Kerby Rosanes, one of his most spectacular books and cleverest books yet, I think anyway. And today we're going to tackle a little bit more of this picture. So we're going to be thinking about this light source today. As you can see, I've finished my sky and I'm quite pleased with it. And I'm going to try and get this trunk finished today, but while I'm doing that, as I said, we're going to think about the light source, and the bulk of the light's actually coming from below here. This is the darker part up the top, so there's going to be some light reflecting up the way, not only from our little hanging village here, but obviously from where the sun's setting much further below. So we're going to take that into account while we work on this trunk. If we get on quite well with that, I may start and do some more of these leaves. I'm going to be using roughly the same colours, so maybe finish off this top part as well. But we will see how we go, because I've got a feeling this is going to take a little while. So we'll zoom in a little bit. I did talk about having this sort of mossy trunk here because I want to make Bernard I want to make him a ginger sloth basically. So yeah, you know. But yeah, the texture on here suggests that this is quite mossy, and I want this to be, obviously want it still to feel part of the picture, but I want it to be sort of set away in the background so that our sloth friend and his little village stands out. So I've picked out some fairly muted colours here. I did want this mossy feel just because of the texture. Oh, there's a little creature there that looks weirdly like hermit crab. You don't belong here. So yeah, I've got a set of base colours here, but as always I will dip into some of my darker shady shades to give us the light and shadow that we need. So I have here the pencil that we were using before, which is the dark cadmium yellow, and that's just for a bit of reflected light. But I've also got some greens here that I'm going to use for mossy tones. So first off, I have the earth green yellowish, this one down here, and I also have olive green yellowish, which is this one here. So that's the kind of colours we're looking for there. And in terms of browns, I want this to be quite cold, so I've opted for Dyke Brown, which is, to be fair, that's a warm brown, which is this one here, and also the dark sepia, which is a much cooler colour, and we're going to use that for shadows and that kind of thing as well. So that's what we've got going on. If there's any more pencils that I decide to use as I go along, I shall let you know. So okay, I'm thinking to myself, in terms of where light's going to be reflecting off the trunk here, there's going to be a couple of little patches here. So I'm just going to very lightly sort of pencil some of that in. And maybe over this side as well. Obviously our sloth friend's going to be blocking a lot of the light from that section there. But if we think about this trunk comes up and round, that's like the curvature of it. So if there's light coming from underneath, it's going to follow that curve a little bit. And it's going to be at its most intense along this bottom section. So, and you don't want that to be uniform, you want it to be quite uneven, because this trunk is not going to be smooth and perfectly cylindrical. It's going to have a lot of knobbly bobbly bits on it. So you don't have to have your reflection colour in a perfectly straight line all the way across, because that would be boring. So I think I'll tackle the mossy parts first. So I'm going to start with my lighter pencil, which is the earth green yellowish, and just decide basically where I want these mossy parts to be. So this is really just down to preference, and I think I'm going to start at this right hand side here and just pick out some of these round sections like that. So my hand's halfway up the pencil here. Keep that pressure nice and light, just a light covering here, nothing crazy. Keep the crazy stuff for later. He's so cute, look at his little face. Just mark in here where we want the green parts to be. A lot of greenery going on over here. So there's going to be quite a lot of work in this. This might take us some time. So I'm quite happy I've picked out the suitably mossy areas. So what that then lets me do is take my Dyke Brown and just cover off the rest of the area. So what I'm doing here is I'm just mapping out the colour, basically so that when I get in the zone and I start working my way through, I'm not caught off guard. I know exactly where my colours are going and what I'm looking for. So I've put all these little signposts out for myself already. I find this particularly helpful with more complicated images. So Kerby's images obviously are usually quite busy and there's quite a lot of detail going on as well. So this is particularly helpful to me in these situations, just so that you don't end up colouring something the wrong colour. As we all know, it's much easier to add pencil than it is to take away. So we'll just concentrate on this section first. Again, something that I do a lot with more complex images is just break them down into sections. So when we're thinking about our light source now then, our lightest part is going to be down here, because our light source is coming from much further underneath, and this is going to be darker up the top here. I find it easier to work dark to light, so I am going to work on these mossy sections first. So at the top here, I'm now taking my darker green, which is the olive green yellowish. I need to put a bit of a point on this. So I'm literally just going to work one little bit of moss at a time, and I'm going to put down a little bit of this olive colour here, and I'm just going to alternate between these two green pencils, but I'm going to lean much more heavily towards the olive rather than the earth green, because we want this section to be dark. We don't want to colour all of it in the olive green though, because it's going to make it look really flat. We still want some kind of texture here. So that's, I'm going in these circular motions. So I'm just working on this tiny little section first of all on its own. Now we can always go back and darken this down later, and that's something that I tend to do quite a lot. So I'm going to leave that little part there just as it is just now. So you get the idea now. We can have a bit of a chat now that I've told you what's going on. The first thing that I haven't actually mentioned, and I feel kind of awkward about it as well, is we had to have Woo put to sleep. It's been a couple of weeks now, but it turns out when she was sick last time, she was having sort of stomach pains and just not a very settled stomach. It turns out she had a huge tumour on her liver, and it was taking up 2/3 of her liver, and it was actually pressing against her stomach, which was why she was feeling sick. So it's inoperable, and we tried her with some steroids to take down the inflammation to see if it made her any more comfortable, and it didn't do anything for her. So we had to make the decision to put her to sleep. Obviously, at the age of nearly 17, her quality of life was the most important thing, and she was hungry all the time, and she couldn't control her bladder towards the end as well. So it really was the kindest thing to do, knowing that there was nothing that was going to make it any better. So we've been a bit of a sad household. Mr. Jem's taken it really hard because he has had Woo basically most of his adult life. He had her from a pup from 7 weeks. So 7 weeks to 17 years, so he's taken it pretty hard, but we're doing okay. It's amazing how such a tiny body can leave such a big gap in the house, and the house feels so empty. And Pip's taking it hard as well. Pip's struggling a wee bit. She did a wee bit of moping and not wanting to eat and that kind of thing, but she's over it now. And the lovely thing is we took Woo's bed, which was in the utility, so where the dogs sleep at night. They all have plastic beds through there, and we brought it through to the cave, and we've put it where Woo used to sleep next to the radiator, and Pip started coming into the cave and lying in it. So that's really nice, but that's taken like over a week for her to do that. But it's nice because I've got Jock and Pip in beside me now, because Pip tends not to stay in the cave. Right, I'm just going to switch over to this Dyke Brown now. The pattern in this trunk has very obvious dark patches and light patches, so I'm going to try and honour that, but I just want to put another layer of the Dyke Brown down. Just start to even this out a little bit all the way across this section before I start looking at the parts that are protruding, and also the parts that aren't on top of the light source. So I'm just going to go over this whole section again. Yeah, so it's been really weird. It's been very hard to adjust to. Obviously, Woo has been part of my life the whole time I've been with Mr. Jem, which is nearly 10 years. So it's very odd. And I went through this when we lost Mist. It took me a while to adjust to only having 2 dogs and not having 3, but once I did, it was actually really nice. I've always said that 3 dogs is one too many, and I wouldn't go back to having 3 dogs. We will not be replacing Woo with another Jack Russell, or any other dog for that matter. I'm quite happy having 2. Thank you very much. Right, okay, so if we think about this section now, I want to take this sepia. This is the dark sepia, and these heavily hatched areas are obviously the recesses. So if we just take the time to fill a couple of these in, I think that should have been a bit of moss, but I'm not gonna split hairs over it. There we go, so that lets us see quite clearly actually. I can't speak, forward facing parts are and the parts that are sunk back and recessed in. Okay, so that's given us a wee bit of variation there. That should have been green, and I think I'm just going to take this green pencil over the top of the brown. Yeah, no harm done there. Okay, so back to my Van Dyke Brown now. I'm going to sharpen this up real good. And I'm just going to start building up layers here to give us some nice rich colour. I am just going to go over the sepia parts as well and really start to build up some colour. So yeah, that's been a big thing for us. We've decided to get Woo privately cremated, so we're going to get her back in a wee box and probably put her on the mantelpiece and talk to her. So it's very, very, very different. Obviously, I've been very sad, but it's very, very different for me to deal with this compared to Mr. Jem. And what I was trying to say to him was that what he's feeling in the position that he's in now, that's where I was when Miss passed away, and he was in my shoes, like where I am now. So the roles have switched round, and it's very hard. But I understand where he is and all the rest of it. But he's trying really hard. And he's doing okay, but it's silly things. And for those of you that have ever had to have a pet put down, you'll know what I'm talking about. The other day I found Woo's Christmas jumper, and I picked it up and I took it through to the other room where Mr. Jem was, and I had it in my hands like this, and I was trying to tell him that I wanted to keep the jumper, but I didn't want to put it in the washing machine. You know, I just wanted to leave it with her smell and her hair on it. And I couldn't get the sentence out. I was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And of course that set him off as well. And it was just, we just ended up sitting there with our eyes leaking for about half an hour. And it was just the silliest thing. But it is things like that kind of catch it off guard. So it's been like that. But we'll get there. We will get there. It's very sad and we miss her, but it wasn't fair on her. Okay, right, this section now. So if we think about our light source, as we come down round here, we're going to have less sepia and more Van Dyke. But along this top edge here, I'm really going to go in with this sepia now. So I'm kind of setting the saturation here and the tone, and we do want it to be quite dark. And I'm going to go over these mossy parts as well, because okay, they're green, but they're still going to be in this shadow. I'm going to try and keep a little bit of that texture, but I do want this to be very dark. I wonder if I zoom in a wee bit, would that be a wee bit better? Yeah, there we go, you can see. Maybe I should have done that earlier. So yeah, other stuff that's been happening as well. It's not all doom and gloom. It's not been a good start to the year, but it's not all doom and gloom. I have been to the dentist, which has been absolutely delightful. My mouth feels so clean, and everything is good and well. I'm bankrupt now. My teeth are in good condition, and the dentist did say to me, she said, you know, now that you're kind of like back on an even keel, you shouldn't have too many problems. Although she did say to me that one of my wisdom teeth might need to come out at some point. Now, I've been through that before. It's not fun because apparently my teeth have rather large roots. I've got very good teeth, and that's probably part of it. And getting one of those out is going to be a military operation. So we're trying to avoid that for as long as we can. Okay, let's add in a bit more Van Dyke down here. I really don't want... I'm a person that's not scared of the white of the paper, and quite often I quite like a little bit of the white of the paper showing through, but up here, because this section needs to be dark, I do not want that. So I'm just being cautious and making sure that I'm not leaving any. So you can see at the edge of the moss there, that bit's going to have to go, and I've got a few little bits here as well. So just want to go back over my hatched areas again with my sepia, because I don't want these to get lost in the actual darkening down of this section, you know, because of the light source. I still want you to be able to see that that's the case. But yeah, mouth's feeling good, which is great. So I'm gonna get some teeth whitening on the go. And this is all part of me just looking after myself a bit better and doing things for me. So that's the next step, and that's going to be in the next week or two. So the next time you see me face on, I might have some pearly white gnashers. Well, not just yet, maybe into February, but yeah. And yeah, I've managed to find time to exercise as well. I haven't done any yoga yet, but I have been doing some beat sabering, which is a great fun way to exercise with a VR headset. And I'm going to be doing that until I drop a bit of weight. I have got an old knee injury and I used to run a lot, but I can't run at the weight that I'm at because I will injure my knee or blow my knee out. I have to be below a certain weight to know that I'm safe to run on it. So that's kind of like my first goal in terms of fitness, is to get down to that magical weight where I can go out running, because I am happiest when I'm running, and I'm one of these people that could talk about running all day, every day. It's the best exercise, and yeah. So that's what we're doing with that, but I'm nowhere near that stage yet. I've got a lot of weight to drop before I can do that, but that's okay. I've got something to work towards. So I'm trying to keep myself motivated with that. And so far, the time I've been spending to art for myself, I finished Mike Wazowski, my little polymer clay escapade. So, oh, there's a little bit of sky in there that I've missed. A sneaky. Look at that. How dare you? This weekend is my weekend to art for myself one afternoon. I have my taxes to do this weekend as well. I've left it right till the last minute, but I'm kind of organised, which is fine. So yeah, this weekend I'm going to have an afternoon, and I'm going to do a little bit of pencil drawing and just in my sketchbook. I'm nearly at the end of my sketchbook, so I kind of want to finish it because I'm excited to start a new one. Right, okay, that section's looking fairly good, and as you can see, I've tried to make it as dark as possible without, you know, going total blackout up at the top here, and I'm quite happy that that's looking okay. So I'm going to carry this on down just this little section here, and then we'll look at doing this lighter section, you know, where our light's coming up from the bottom. So as we work our way down, obviously we want less and less of the sepia and more of the Van Dyke, but we still want to be able to have some contrast in there, you know, a little bit of that light and dark side by side. Jock's changed as well since Woo's not here, and it's absolutely astonishing. We've realised that he must have harboured a little bit of resentment towards the small dog, because he is so much happier, which is terrifying that we never picked up on that. But Jock's very shy and very passive. He doesn't give a lot away, unlike Pip. You know exactly what kind of mood Pip's in because she will let you know. But we didn't realise that Jock felt so oppressed, and he's turning into a different dog, which is weird, but in a really good way. So I'm kind of sad for him that we didn't know that about him. I don't know whether he felt she was just too domineering. Woo was always in charge kind of thing, and maybe Jock felt a bit put upon, I don't know. But yeah, that's really interesting the last few days, especially. He's really starting to come out of his shell a little bit again, which is just, it's so sad, but it's so nice. So now down here, I kind of want to just focus on this part first of all, because this is where I've got, you know, a fair bit of yellow pencil. And I just want to start by going over the top of this very, very lightly. So this is us layering up on top of the yellow. So that's the edge of that leaf there is actually quite a good place to stop, and we'll bring it over right beside Bernard's head. So I'm hoping you can see the subtle change in the colour here. So if we just layer that up a little bit. Now we have to kind of pick individual parts out here. So the non-hatched parts, i.e. the lighter parts, is obviously going to catch more of the light. So for example, this little section here. So now what we can do is in the hatched parts, which up here was our sepia colour, we're going to go in quite heavily with the Van Dyke. So we've still got that contrast. So you can see very different to what's going on up here. And now what we want to do is we just want to sort of join that together. Now in my head mentally I kind of draw a line through the middle, you know, what would be the midsection, which is conveniently roughly where this branch is. So that's the point where, when you think about the curvature of a cylinder, that's going to be your tipping point. So anything below that's going to be heading towards light, and anything the other side's going to be heading towards dark. And that's the point where you have to try and blend those two things together. So if we just look at our moss here, this moss is going to be considerably lighter. So I'll just build up some colour on this one section here, and maybe only have a hint of the olive green. So again, this is the Van Dyke. And as we bring this up here, you can see we're heading into these hatched sections. Spit it out, Jem. So we're going to pop those in. Now just stop again at the edge of that mossy part. We'll deal with that moss in a minute. So we're going to start joining this together now. So we can go on here with our dark sepia, and we can be quite confident because we want to merge this in with what's going on up here and lighten it as we're coming down. So again, just remember the golden rule, you can always add in more pencil, but you can't take it away. So you're better to go gently to begin with until you figure out if you've got it the right way round. You know, if you've got the darkness into the light going where you want it to, rather than just going ham. So again, medium pressure here with the Van Dyke. And then as we come down here, maybe put in a few darker patches, you know, in between some of these areas here. Again, just for interest. Now we can still use the sepia down here. There's nothing saying we can't use the sepia, but we don't need to use as much of it. So I'm reasonably happy, and what will happen is, if I just take a wee zoom out here, as we go along and we work along and we step back, which is really important to do every now and then, we'll see how we're getting on as we go along, and it means we can go back and adjust things. Like, I might think that we've not taken this far enough down, because I'm trying to think about what's going on like either side of this, and the light may be slightly different, but we can go back as we go along and we can tweak it and adjust it. I'm now fighting the light. Did you see that? There's the sunlight starting to come, like it's the sun's moving round. So I really want to get this filmed while I've got the light the way that it is. I like working in natural light, but obviously I can't have direct sunlight because I'd be blinded. I don't think the video quality will be very good either. So let's try and get this section finished here. So we'll move on to our moss. I'll pop that in there. Interesting as well, just when we're talking about dogs, the male dog we had before Jock, his name was Moss, and he was beautiful. So I think I've talked about Moss before, and I'm sure it was Katara had asked me about photos of him because he had blue eyes. He was a tricolour as well, and he was a lot hairier than Jock, but he had proper icy blue eyes. He had amazing eyes, and I can't remember if I ever posted a picture of him or not. If you'd like to see a picture of Moss, please let me know. I will dig one out, maybe post it on the community tab for y'all. He was a lovely dog. He was like the dumb as rocks, like, oh, unbelievable, and I have no idea how he was clever enough to herd sheep. I really don't. I don't know how that happened, but he was a lovely natured dog, but he seemed to work well for Mr. Jem. He was Mr. Jem's dog, he wasn't my dog. So we're out smack bang in the middle of calving now as well, and I generally don't take a lot to do with it because we have capable staff now, which is nice, but you know, like to go out and oversee and just generally make sure all my cows are doing okay, and but when I say our boys, I mean the staff are okay as well. And Mr. Jem phoned me late afternoon, it was about 4:30 or something, and the first sentence out of his mouth was, "Are you busy?" Now that means I need you to help with something, because he wasn't on the farm, he was elsewhere. And I said to him, "What is it? What do you want?" And he said, one of the boys has got a cow calving and the calf is breech. Can you go out and help him? So this particular laddo has never calved a breech calf before. So breech is when your baby comes out backwards, and obviously when you've got 4 legs, that's even worse than you know, humanness, because you've got extra hoofs to contend with, and hoofs are sharp. So yeah, anyway, I went out to help, and everything was fine. The baby was fine. We managed to get it out, no problem. Mum was absolutely grand, and all was well. So it was just a case of needing to be there for confidence and moral support, like, because I said to him, I said, it's just the same as one coming out the other way, except you've got a tail instead of a head, and you just have to be gentle. That's it. So that's kind of boosted his confidence a little bit as well, which is amazing, because he's a really good worker, but he's very, very good with the cows. He's a good stocksman. I'm very happy leaving the girls in his care. And so I lay down in the pen beside the calf because we had to make sure the calf was breathing and up and going and everything. So we did that, and you kind of like, you rub their side, and you've got to like pull mucus out their nostrils and everything, which is a little bit icky. And just make sure that their heart's pumping and beating properly and that their lungs are working properly. So I'm knelt down in the pen with this calf and I'm chatting away to it, quite the thing. And it's just one of those things that you do, and anybody looking in from the outside's like, what the hell are they doing? But yeah, it's a very nice process, but it's also quite a stressful process as well, because there's always that slight chance that the calf won't make it. Being born breech puts a lot of stress on their little bodies, because they're basically coming out the wrong way. If the calf is very small, sometimes you can actually turn it. Not advisable. A vet would advise you not to do that either. Again, just because there's 4 limbs, and at the end of those 4 limbs are hoofs. So you generally have to try and just position it so that you can get it out backwards, and you have to be gentle. So it can be quite stressful, and I can understand why. You know, the workers, if it's something they've not done before, they would rather have somebody there that's used to it. It's fine though. We try not to assist calving though. We try and let the girls get on with it themselves, and we like to leave them to do things on their own as much as possible, and we've always been like that. But with a breech birth, you have to intervene. There's no, she's not going to manage that herself. That was fine, but that's the first assisted calving that I've had to do so far this year, that's pretty good. So far so good. And in amongst that we had a set of twins. Right, but that was the first cow that calved, it was twins, which was funny, and the fact that they both survived as well, because cows aren't really built to carry multiples, but like humans, you know, they can do it, but it would be better if they didn't. And usually the first cow to calve, you're kind of wary because maybe they're a wee bit early, and if they're early, obviously the chances of survival drop a little bit. And the fact that it was twins, we're like, oh, we're going to lose one of these twins. You know, one's going to be like a sickly little baby, or like the smallest one's not going to make it. And they're absolutely fine, which is just the best thing ever. Like, it really is. It's so cool. It makes me very happy. But I've got a pet cow in that group, in the calving group. She doesn't have a name. I think I need to give her a name. She just goes by her management tag, which is M19. And she's absolutely lovely. So when I'm sitting rubbing this calf the other afternoon, trying to get it going before we let mum in beside it, I do the way you're feeling that someone's watching you. And I turned round and M19 was literally over my shoulder, looking at me and looking at the calf like, oh, what are you doing? And then she's kind of like, because she's starting to get maternal as well, because she's in calf. And I'm saying to her, that's not your baby, you haven't had yours yet. The boy that works for us is just standing shaking his head at me. He's like, what's wrong with you? Like, well, we've got to tell her. Okay, right, I'm really happy with this section so far, but what I do feel is that there's not enough yellow here. Like, I want it to be a little bit more obvious. So I'm just using a flicking motion. I'm just going back over parts of this. Okay, so if we take it all the way out now, you can see how much of a contrast that's going to be, but you can also see the difference between the dark part up here and the lighter part underneath. So that's kind of, it's basically going to be the same thing all the way across. This middle section is going to be slightly different because there's more moss here. But when we get back to this other side, there's going to be a lot more of the brown. So I'm just going back to the olive green here, and I'll get going with my moss again. And honestly, with pictures like this, so many of you email me or make comments underneath the videos saying that you haven't touched, you know, a certain book because you're intimidated by it, or you don't know where to start, or you're frightened of making a mess of it. And the best advice I can give you is just to pick a section, plan out your colours and just go for it. No one's going to get hurt. It's just paper. And do you know what? Even if it doesn't go according to plan, and 9 times out of 10 it's in a book, you shut the book, no one's going to see it. But you normally learn something from it. Like if you monumentally ball something up, which, oh, I've had many of those in colouring books. You usually learn a lesson from it though, and it makes you better next time. Okay, I think Kerby was wanting to push this to be really mossy, but I'm going to defy and make some of this woody. I don't want there to be too much green here. I'm just trying to pick out the sections. Now see, what's interesting about this is obviously Bernard's big fuzzy head is in the way, so we're not going to have the same light source that we've got in this section here. This is actually going to be all dark because he is blocking the light that's coming up from underneath because these big old heads right there. So we maybe don't have to have it quite as dark as what's going up here, but certainly not as light as what's going on down here. So that's just something to think about as well. If you're, you know, if you're wanting to add a bit of dimension to your colouring, you don't have to be like absolutely pinpoint exact with stuff like this. And I do say this a lot, there's times where I colour and I don't even bother thinking about a light source because it's just not that important. It's something that you can add in, even in just a very simple format, to your colouring to make it, you know, just take it that extra step. Oh, nearly coloured my moss in with the mauve there. That wouldn't have been a good move. It wouldn't have been a good mauve. Ah! Oh dear. Well, see, we're at that point where the bad jokes are coming out. There's a few bits and pieces in the stash shop today, including but not limited to the Caran d'Ache Neo Colour 2s. There was a little set of 10 that came in an accidental subscription box. So I already have, somebody actually gifted me a set of 30 a while ago. So I have left the set of 10 in their cellophane and I'm popping them in the stash shop. So if it's something you want to try, then you can head over and see if they are still available. I would imagine they'll go fairly quickly once they've been listed because they're quite expensive and they're a very popular item. So apologies that I've only got one set of them, but that's just the thing about what we do here at the cave. That's what makes it special and that's what makes it a bargain. It looks like the sun's starting to come round now and it looks like it's going to be an absolutely beautiful day outside. We are having unseasonably warm weather and it's very, very disconcerting. I do not like it at all. I don't like when things like this happen. It makes me feel really uneasy. We should be heading towards snow by now. We should be snowed in, getting to that stage. And our forecast for the weekend is 14 and 15 degrees Celsius, which we should be down at 0. So I find that very, very disconcerting. So anyway, the sun's out and it seems to be, it is chilly outside this morning. I've already been out this morning, check my girls and my breech baby. And it was about 2 degrees when I went out this morning. But I think it's going to warm up. That's generally what's been happening. It's been dropping cold at night, you know, so we're still getting that, the cold temperatures at night. But during the day it's really heating up. So I'm just in with the sepia here, so I'm just darkening this down. And I'm just trying to match this up with this bit, and I think we're so far so good. I don't know what's wrong with Jockey Can't Settle. It may be the fact I'm discombobulating him because I'm filming in the morning. Normally I film much later in the afternoon. Just with my work schedule just now, that's what has to happen. And I don't know whether maybe that's upsetting Jock a wee bit. I really like this earth green yellowish. It's a nice green colour. It's quite a cheery colour without being garish. My moss sorted out here. Yeah, last night was pizza night, so that I don't want to say cheat night because that makes it sound like I'm on a really strict diet. I'm not, but I am trying to eat better. And Wednesday night has always been pizza night, so I sort of manoeuvred myself around that calorie wise yesterday so that I could still have pizza last night, and it ended up being really late on by the time that we ate. And I don't know about you guys, but I found that if you eat late on at night or if you have a big meal later on, quite often the next morning you're hungry, like your stomach's rumbling, and I don't understand why that's the case. But am I the only one? Does anybody else experience that? So yeah, that was last night and I am ravenous this morning. So once I've done this though, I am going to go and get some oats, and then I'm going to take I was about to say the 3 dogs, no, it's only 2 dogs now. I'm going to take Pip and Jock OUT for a WALK before I start my proper job. So I'm working kind of odd hours just now, so I'm just kind of like slotting everything in roundabout, which is fine. I think, well, I'm going to try and get this section finished before we finish up here. I kind of want to, like, I'm gravitating over to this side now. It's just a case of kind of like trying to join everything up. Working in a bit more of the Van Dyke here. And a bit more of the sepia. Oh, Bernard, you're so handsome. Yeah, okay, so far so good. I'm just squinting away here. So if I bring this round, I haven't really decided what's... Trying to decide there what I wanted to make wood and what I wanted to make moss. See, I'll keep this dark. Just bearing in mind that Bernard's big noggin's going to be blocking out some of the light. Bernard and his big noggin. Back to my mossy parts here. So we want to just kind of keep these in the middle, you know, in keeping with what we decided about light sources. So I've got this part. And so I might actually have a bit more olive here. Trying to concentrate now. Yeah, it's quite a complicated lot of lines here. You know, there's lots going on. Okay, we're nearly there. There we are. I'm hoping you all enjoyed Thursday's video with the with all the brainstorming and the boxes. I had really good fun, and you know that it actually made me feel... It made me feel better about all those supplies sitting there, because I was like, it was kind of bothering me a little bit. And so to sit down and actually do something with them was amazing. And I'm really looking forward, so like today, I'm looking forward to looking at all your responses and seeing which ideas were most popular, and then we're going to have a vote on it later on today. So even if you've already watched this video in the morning, you check back later for the community tab and vote on your favourite thumbnail idea. I really like the powders. I really like the powders. I really liked everything, to be fair. Like I had such good fun with it. Okay, I keep like there's another bit. That's not light enough. That's too dark. That's not dark enough. Right, there we go. I think that's it. So you can see where I'm going with this. So most of the light is concentrated here. And if I zoom out, that might just... oh, come on. There we go. So you can see where we're going with that. And as I say, I'll continue that on. So I hope that's been useful to you today, and I hope you've enjoyed coming and hanging out, because I have. It's been great. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, next video I think we'll have a wee bit of a recap on the leaves. And then we can maybe start tackling Bernard, or maybe even his little village. So that's it for today, guys. Be sure to go over and check out the stash shop over on the website. This is the website address here. And I shall see you all back in the cave on Thursday for another video. So have a great day, everyone, and bye-bye for now.